Mythos Busters, investigating the mystery, monsters, and madness of Arkham Horror, the card game.
Hello and welcome to episode 137 of Mythos Busters. I'm Sean. Joining me tonight for tonight's wonderful recording is let's go Scott. Hey Scott.
Hello.
How you doing?
I am good. I am 75% full of energy. So that's
just the
good,
75.
Yeah, well, I made it to work today, so.
Well, we're gonna tap all the reserves tonight, I'm sure.
I plan to go to bed at -2.
-2. That makes more sense than AM PM. Let's adopt it.
Truly does. You guys gotta get on the 24-hour clock, man. It's fantastic.
I have 24-hour. I have military time on every phone, every clock that I have control over, and I catch no amount of guff from anyone who comes into my car or looks at my phone, and I'll never understand it. Military time makes so much more sense.
I got used to it from a kid because in French, all time is military time. Like, it's just...
Oh, really? For the French?
The language itself. Like, you just say, like, 20 o'clock. You don't say... Yeah.
That sounds wonderful.
Instead of 8 o'clock p.m. Yeah, it's fantastic. Also, my work is all 24-hour clock, so it's even better.
It's almost like when you really care about accurate time telling, you just do military time.
Imagine that.
You learn. The more you know, kids. Joining us as well is Justin. Hey, Justin.
Hey, guys.
How you?
Good. Let's say I'm at 76% energy, just to one-up Scott.
Of course.
Hell yeah. Well, I'm gonna draw on both of you because I'm at like 25% tonight. So we'll do the socialism thing and like even out at like 38 or so.
So we're Bacardi 151 then?
Something like that.
Does the math check out?
We've got an excellent episode for you guys tonight. Technically a couple for those of you listening live. So for episode 137, we are going to do our normal openers. We're going to run through a patron update. And then tonight's episode, we are going to finally... It's been like a year in the making. It feels like we are finally going to finish our formalized thoughts on the Edge of the Earth campaign box. We're going to talk about Fatal Mirage and then Edge of the Earth as a campaign in general.
I love how the preview season for the Scarlet Keys is almost over, and we're like, yeah, let's finish Edge of the Earth.
It's like maybe we should. Maybe the month that Scarlet Keys is supposed to come out, maybe we should finish it.
Hey, remember that time when they announced the change to the format, and we were like, oh man, what about the content drought we're going to have in the middle? That was cute. That was cute of us.
Yeah. Well, you know, live and learn, I guess. And then, of course, we'll round it out with some Tentacle Time. But before we get to any of that, just a couple quick reminders here for everyone. So a quick reminder about our format change. So our new episode format constitutes one big recording every month, and then we release those recordings in two parts. Scheduling is done way ahead of time. We have the schedule listed in our Discord. If you'd like to listen to them live, it's very easy to plan for it, and we haven't missed one yet. Yay! So here we are. Come join us for our live episode recordings. In addition to that, as Scott mentioned, I will remind everyone that we are in the possibly the peak, the vinegar strokes of the Scarlet Keys spoiler season. So go check out your favorite community contributors. There's player card previews everywhere. We have had all the investigators previewed at this point. Is that accurate? I know we're at least a few more down.
I believe our last count is there's 4 out of 6 that we have like front back signatures.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're close.
Very close.
So we're close. So go check that out. We ourselves got to do one on our YouTube recently. What was the last one we did? We've been so spoiled this season. I forgot what the most recent one was.
And the Survivor Dilemma.
Yes, that's right. We did our
one of the Survivor Dilemmas. I saw another one out there. So
But anyway, that is on our Twitch and our YouTube channel, so go check that out if you haven't already. Very exciting stuff. So guys, let's check in for a minute. It's been a month. What you been playing, Scott?
I finished up my Innsmouth campaign with Luke. That I was trying solo just as a funsy to get through and see what I'm gonna do for Iron Man. I think just seeing how much Luke can break Innsmouth. God, I am terrible with scenario names. The one where you go under the lighthouse and you have to use the pump to like
light in the fog.
Yes, that's the one after Horror and High Gear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one was a bit difficult for Luke because he just doesn't have those stats. But it was all right. I think he's gonna certainly shine in multiplayer because I could see where with solo, I felt like this is one of the campaigns where I don't want to say the game falters, but Luke's ability to jump around isn't always the biggest skill that is needed in a bunch of scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
Because this one, like, you kind of need to kill things, and I didn't tech that hard for that with this deck, so that's partially on me. But yeah, and I've also been tinkering around with Parallel Wendy with just going hard on Bless, and that's been really fun with a parallel back for the deck building, and then just keeping her normal front, so that like basically
I always forget you can do that.
Yeah, I'm throwing blessed tokens in the bag like that, and when I do fail, I can just discard a card and try again. And I'm using like the discard suite of cards. Yeah.
And her front is the one that uses the memento, right? So you're foregoing the ability to put the blessed tokens on enemies and like do stuff with them. Is that
correct? Yeah, like the front is like her normal, where you can discard a card to redraw a token.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Have you found that combination to be particularly potent? Do you think it was worth the sacrifice of the memento?
Yeah. I mean,
Have you played with the memento before?
Once, and I remember it being like okay, like it was neat, it was fun, but as far as like I crave efficiency, right? Like I think everyone listening to this knows that I am just like, how can I make this the most efficient and productive? And that's where I find fun. And passing tests I know, right? Passing tests all the time, especially with like Ancient Covenant. My God, is that the best Covenant?
Yes.
Okay, I thought so. But...
I mean, yeah.
Right?
I'm sure there's a more nuanced answer that we could reach for, I'm sure, but ultimately, yes.
And the fact that Parallel Wendy can take everything that's blessed, like I can pump that bag full of 10 tokens very easily. And it's like, okay, well, guaranteed I'm passing the first, like almost any test I do, the first one, because of Ancient Covenant, and I'm testing high enough that I'll usually test on or pass on the numbers. And if I fail, I can discard a card to redraw and then probably pass that one. And there's so many blesses that even if I'm only testing 2 up, like I'll probably draw a bless, then a -4, and I'm still good. Like it's just, it's bonkers. And then it just comes down to brass tacks, right? Where it's, I need to pass an agility test. I need to discover a clue. I need to whatever. You're using bless to just make yourself pass basic actions, and that's how you get yourself to the finish line. So I just find it really fun seeing all the different colors in my deck and just packing that bag full. So
No, I want Scott to design a custom card called Brass Tacks.
I guess my question would be, what bless cards have you been using to add blesses to the bag itself?
I've been using, so like what do you call it? Survivor has a bunch. The one, was it Keep Faith? Is the red one? No. Okay, that's the 2 costs.
That's the
4
fast
bless
add
event.
4.
Yeah. And then I've actually been using some of the Guardian ones that cancel events or cancel attacks. Sorry, and moving around.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of what else. I'm gonna try and find my list here, but yeah. Let me find my list. Come back to me.
Yeah.
I'll find it.
I just think, I do ultimately think that Ancient Covenant is the best because it's the one that for the lowest cost can just be like, okay, we're done with this test now, and it succeeds. The Paradoxical Covenant technically can do that too, but like to draw a bless and a curse, you gotta, I don't know, it's just a little bit more rigmarole to fulfill that one.
Yeah.
To my mind. But between Ancient Covenant, Wendy's ability to just go fish for another token if you don't like it, and then I assume you're doing at least one like Favor of the Sun.
2 of them.
Okay.
Just because, why not?
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
Like,
why not? Because Favor of the Sun, when you have Ancient Covenant, is just I auto succeed one test every round whenever I feel like it.
and to have it loaded up for the Mythos phase.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I've got Hand of Fate in there, which is when an enemy attacks, add bless tokens equal to their combined damage and horror values, which is really nice. I have Holy Rosary.
Sure.
Keep Faith is in there.
The Guardian Holy Rosary, I assume.
Yes, yeah. And then Ancient Covenant, of course. Beloved, which is basically just another Ancient Covenant. So, which is the skill, survivor skill. Righteous Hunt. And do I have Radiant Smite in there? Yeah,
Is Righteous
Radiant
Hunt
Smite
the
for
Lita Chantler card? I remember that one correctly.
It is. I think so. Kind of looks like her. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's
her
Lita.
coming down the two two ghoul things. Yeah.
I will never not love how much the art on the Innsmouth Guardian cards were just Bloodborne.
Mm-hmm.
They're just Bloodborne throughout the entire cycle, and it's great, and I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, cool.
Also, I run Tempt of Fate, Tempt of Fate.
Oh, yeah,
sorry.
you do.
Because I mean, it's just a fast cantrip, and it adds tokens to the bag. Like those 3 curse tokens are totally worth the 3 bless tokens when there's 7 other bless tokens in the bag.
Yep.
No.
And it thins your deck,
Mm-hmm.
and definitely worth the cost. I feel like Tempt Fate is just kind of like if you're going like super min max and don't mind a little bit of variability in your chaos bag, I feel like you could just slot Tempt Fate into any deck, regardless of whether it's doing further bless or curse play, and it would still be pretty okay.
Yeah.
Free fast cantrip.
I've also been using Rite of Sanctification for
That's a good one.
payoff from the bless one, because I mean, there's your economy, right? Like, even if I play, what's it called again? The fast 2 cost for bless one.
Keep faith.
Keep Faith. My goodness, keep it in your head, Scott. And then play out the Rite of Sanctification, like even for 4 blesses, like that's insane.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
yeah, I will be very, very interested. I started up a just standard parallel front and back Wendy campaign that got derailed because Edge. I'll be very, very excited to dive back into that, particularly with some of the changes we've seen come out in the recent FAQ that we'll talk about a bit further later.
yeah. Wing It mentions Jacob Morrison as well as the ally. I've just upgraded to him and played 1 game. And yeah, he, like, if you're just going hard parallel Wendy Bless, I guess is what this archetype is now. I don't know. He's really good.
Yeah.
Like, lucky on a stick when you need it. And then, I mean, if you've got Favor of the Sun or just pumping Bless tokens there, he's readying a ton. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I have yet, and maybe this is a thing I really need to think about with Wendy in particular, is I have yet to play around with Bless and Curse in a solo campaign. Mostly because I like barely ever play solo campaigns, but I feel like it would be even more potent when you don't have a bunch, you have like 3 other munchkins pulling out all the tokens you need. And it's like, no, guys, just stop drawing the tokens, please.
yeah. Could you just stop ruining what I'm trying to do here? Maka just asks, if you redraw the token with Wendy's ability, do you lose any of the blessed tokens that you drew in the first pull? No, because you're just replacing a single token. So you cancel it, put it back in the bag, and redraw. So if you drew like Bless Tentacle, you could throw the tentacle back, and you still have the Bless in the order that it's happening.
The Bless is still pending.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yep. Yeah.
Awesome. Justin, you've been playing anything recently?
I haven't had a ton of time to play, but I was able to get in actually a fan scenario. Chad, who is one of our board members, he and I played through, what's it called? The Symphony one. Symphony of Eric Zahn.
Oh, of Eric Zahn.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I had not played that before, and so he had a printed version and brought it over, and we ran through, and that was pretty neat. I was impressed with it.
How, do your best without being like completely spoilery, but like, how was it? That's one I've yet to play, and I've heard good things.
Yeah. I mean, the thing I liked was its main mechanic. It does something different with the encounter deck. I actually kind of likened it to a roguelite, but without the benefit portion of it. But there are points in it where it's basically persistent curses that are hanging around, and then you can game it a little in getting them to cycle, eating certain ones to then let new ones come out, and it was cool. We ended up dooming out on the final turn. So
oh no.
yeah, so that was a little rough because we had a rough go of it, then we had turned it around, and then just couldn't quite pull it out. But no, it was very fun. I recommend it. I think we know there's a lot of great fan content out there, but definitely recommend that one. So I'm looking forward to, he and I are probably starting up Dark Matter next. And so
Nice.
I'm looking forward to that because I have not played that, and I've only heard good things about it.
I've only played the first 3 scenario, or the first 2, and then like you have choices as to what you do next. But yeah,
Well, I will just let you know when we're playing, and you can come over too.
Well then,
Problem solved.
Fantastic. And then as for myself, I have gone through and finished my Mystic Mandy and Sled Dog Leo campaign through Edge of the Earth. And I am remarkably happy to report back that once I finally got the deck list down and the rhythm for playing Dog Sled Leo, and then like this is due in no small part to the fact that I got to add Anu as like the lead dog to my sled dog team. That was wonderful because she's great. Sled dogs are pretty okay. They're all right. I think I made the comment a couple episodes back that they're like one of those cards where they have a really high ratio of like how much we like them and want them to work versus how much they actually are good and work. But I ended up having a really good time with that campaign. The one thing that I continually come back to is that, okay, cool, sled dogs will save you weapon ammo because you can get a lot of damage. You can get 3-4 damage out of a single hit, and that was supremely useful. But in my head, I had also really logged it as like, okay, well, I've got Edge of the Earth going, big maps, right? Lots of mobility needed. Sled dogs will let me like zip around the map as needed. And maybe that happens in like 4-player, but I found in 2-player that I don't think I ever moved past like 2 locations in a single turn. So like this dream I had of like flitting, light speed across the map several times in a game just kind of like never actually was useful. I was capable of it. I could have done it, but it was just not a thing that ever actually materialized. So, I guess your mileage may vary there depending on the scenario.
Yeah, I seem to remember like once or twice, you're right, like moving 3 or 4 times. But even like moving 2 times for one action, a couple times a game, and they're also fighting, and then once a game you're moving 4. Like I think the plus all that soak, right? Like, I mean, you're damn near invincible at some point.
Yeah.
So
You just got a meat shield of dogs out in front of you. Oh, I hated that sentence. I regret it.
really hated that sentence.
I feel like from my experience with sled dogs, is it's another brass tacks kind of where
Wow.
it's improving your combat, your damage output. It can help you save some actions in moving, and you've got soak for days for those times where you just need to take a hit and not commit to a treachery, or an enemy needs to hit you for a attack of opportunity or whatever.
Just so many different reasons you might, and
Yeah.
you have the space. Justin, you'll be happy to know, though, that despite my meat shield of dogs, the only time I ever actually fully lost a sled dog was to Leo's weakness. So
Okay.
yeah, I had enough of them that I spread the hurt around, I guess.
Okay, we can still be friends.
Then beyond that, though, I do want to throw this out there. You know, we talked about it when we first kind of started our new format here, that we'd have a little bit more time, hopefully, for twitching games. This summer has been brutal on our schedules collectively, but we did manage to fit in a game with me, Scott, and Ian. And we have that out on our Twitch and YouTube. We did that after our most recent player card preview. We played kind of a modified Chaos Ultimatum standalone.
Yeah, we did.
And it was a really good time. So basically what we did is we each picked an investigator, and then we each basically generated a chaos deck for one of the other teammates. So like Scott, you did mine, I did yours.
Oh no, you did Ian's.
I did
Ian
Ian's.
mine.
Yeah. And then the person who rolled the deck also got to add 9 XP's worth of cards to it to make it a standalone deck, because we then took it up against standalone version of the Pallid Mask. Just maximum chaos.
Yeah. When the map is RNG and your deck is RNG and the bag is RNG, it was just it was a hoot.
It was a really good time, and we did significantly better than I thought we would. It turns out you can actually do significant work with 9 XP.
I mean, I think that's just a testament to the card pool nowadays. You know, that there's so many level 1 and level 2 options that you can kind of spread the love around in the deck enough. You're not just like, well, 1 5 XP card and 1 4 XP card, and best of luck. So
Yeah.
And you picked Patrice just
I
because
did.
of and going into Patrice, not knowing your deck, and it's an RNG deck and it's an RNG scenario, like it's a new adventure every turn for you.
Yep.
Yeah.
I definitely wanted to lean into the craziness and just be like, all right, I'm not going to worry about it. Just like everything's crazy.
And we didn't tell each other what was in our decks either. Like once we had upgraded them, we loaded them for each other. And so whatever we were drawing was just new to all of us. It was fantastic. I actually really loved that format.
Yeah, and as Patrice, I drew a lot, so it was really fun. Yeah, that format was great, and that was super easy to just wheel out at the last minute. So if I have anything to say about it, and I can't imagine I'm going to get much resistance here, that's not the last time we will do a game like that. We're just like, all right, pick 3 investigators, let's just go. So yeah, go check that out on Twitch and YouTube. And then beyond that, I do have to say that I'm in a weird spot because I just finished that Edge campaign. I'm not playing at this point in the year. Maybe once like winter post holidays rolls around, I'll get there. But I'm not playing often enough this time of year to like start a new campaign and know that I'm going to be able to finish it before September 30th, which is our best information as to when Scarlet Keys comes out. So I'm in this weird place of like, well, what do I do then? So I'm dealing with that angst by just like assembling a bunch of standalone decks and deciding to approach Arkham like a Lord of the Rings or a Marvel, where when I sit down to play an Arkham, it's a standalone situation for the next little while, and that's been fun. I kind of have to remind myself periodically through the life of the game that standalone is a really fun mode, and it's very good if you just want to like test deck ideas, because you get to just like do that, and you don't have to build up, and you don't have to have succeeded beforehand to do it. So yeah, just a bunch of standalone preparing for events and whatnot.
I've just to prepare for the Scarlet Keys and kind of not burn myself out on Arkham, because I'm always at risk of that, I think. I've started to like just play a couple other games, you know what I mean, and just like back off a bit from Arkham, and so that when Scarlet Keys drops, I'm just hankering.
Scott, what we really need to do to get you your Arkham fix, but to avoid your burnout, is we need to make that that situation we were describing last time a reality, where I play through something solo because I don't really play solo, and then you can commentate and do a post-mortem on it like a sportscaster, because I think that'll get me into the game a little more regularly, and then I think you'll just have fun tearing apart in a good-natured way how it's going.
Yeah, good-natured. Yeah. Or, you know, we could do it where like it's like the ghost pottery scene, and you know, I'm gently caressing your hands as you choose which action to take.
Was that not already on the table?
I mean,
or on the pottery wheel?
I guess so. But yeah, that would be fun. I would love that.
Yeah. That would go very well in the gaping hole that was left by achievement hunters, so I approve of this transaction.
Yeah.
All right, adding it to the list.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's move it on. So, as always, we'd like to thank our patrons. So, big thanks, of course, to our board members, which would be Chris B, Chris H, Chris M, Chris U, our conglomeration of Chris's, Morton, Jared, Ian, Kyle, Philip, Patrick, Abilio, Jesse, Chad, and Robert. Huge thanks to you guys. And special shout out to a random patron this week goes to The Northman. So thank you, The Northman, for your support. I'm sorry your movie didn't do so well at the box office.
Was that a movie?
Didn't they make a movie out of The Northman?
I think they did.
Okay.
I don't know what The Northman is.
It's a Viking graphic novel. Let's go with that. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. And moving on then, we've got a new entrant to the Mythos Busters offices this week. So I'd like everyone to get up off your office chairs and half-heartedly welcome Eric Sharp, who is going to be our new card ink eraser for the Taboo division. They needed the extra help because we knew that FAQ was going to be dropping pretty fast. Eric is a specialist in wiping off the XP pips. Is that what we call those?
So. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's going to fit in just great. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, especially with that one card getting unchained. That's a lot of cards to unpip.
To depip. Anyway.
Depipulate.
Depipulate. All right, that'll work. Depipulate. Yep. All right, let me change that job title here. Taboo Depipulator.
Card Depipulator.
All right, so moving to news, we had a little bit of news in the, well, I mean, like the FAQ is definitely news. It's a big change to the game. We're going to be talking about that on the next episode. So stick around if you're here tonight, and stay tuned if you're listening at home. But beyond that, Justin, we had a bit of a thing announced that us local people are particularly excited about, and everyone else can get excited about too.
Yes, we most certainly did. Arkham Knights 2022. Woo! It is a thing. It's going to be great. I have to remind myself of dates here. I want to say October 14th to 16th at the Game Center, which, side note, if I forget and offhand say FFZ, that is what we have started referring to the Game Center as, because it was FFG before. It's just where we went. So, to not confuse anyone, you hear FFZ, that's what it is. But October 14th to 16th, Sean and I actually just had a real great meeting with the Game Center. So encourage anybody who can get there to get there. It'll be great. We're going to be doing some events. I think for the most part, we're still keeping them slightly under wraps just because we have to finalize some stuff with the Game Center. But there's going to be an Iron Man.
I do think it's safe to say to save your Saturday, y'all.
Yeah. That we can say for sure. We're going to do Iron Man on Saturday. It will be what did we decide on the term for it? How to describe it as? I was going with non-canonical. Did we have another way to describe it?
Yeah, that'll work.
All right.
Yeah, since we decided to move Iron Man officially to BusterCon, this is like an Iron Man side scenario.
This is an Iron Man what if.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be just for fun. We're going to do Return to Dunwich. So that we'll share that information in Discord and stuff as well. But if you're listening, help spread the word, start planning. It's going to be great. Let's pack the Game Center for it so that we can have some good representation like we had last time. I think we had somewhere between 60 and 65 people playing in person, along with people playing online. If you can't make it in person, we'd love to have you, as with Iron Man in the past, play along online, report in. It's great. It's what you know. It's what you love. So we get an extra Iron Man this year, and that's going to be awesome. For those who have not been to Arkham Nights before, it's not just the LCG, though. The Game Center has stuff going on for all of the Arkham Files games. They're partnering with FFG for this. Game Center is just a great space as well. Lots of space. There's good food, drinks. There's a bunch of fun stuff nearby. Yeah.
There's a costume contest if cosplay is your thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And if you have been before, the space is even better now. Even if you were there at the last Arkham Nights, they continue to improve it. It's very impressive. So yeah, show up. It'll be great. And if you are there for the LCG, there is a shiny new official Arkham scenario. So
That's fun.
Yeah, and then I'm just going to read this note that I have, not knowing what it means. Advise that you bring standalone decks, but maybe a couple that you can back up to level 0 in case you find a campaign you want to play.
Yeah. That I just threw that in there. So for anyone who's not been, join our Discord, first of all. People will be talking and planning and coordinating throughout the weekend and leading up to it to find games and whatnot. But I'd say for meetups like this, generally the rule of the day is that you're going to be playing standalone scenarios. However, of course, if you want to leave yourself the option, what I'd recommend is just making it so that you can back one of those standalones up to level 0.
And we're obviously going to be there. The three of us who are on here tonight will be. We're hoping Ian can join us. Just depends on some logistics on his ends. But anybody who is there, I think we'll have the name tags we usually do, Sean. If not, we'll just get some generic ones as well. But we'd love to talk to anybody who listens to the cast, who's on Discord. Just come stop by, say hi. We always love to meet people who are in the community and network, especially Sean, who is our networker in chief.
I do love meeting people, yes. So don't be shy, y'all. All right, well, that's just so exciting. And I know we're still in kind of a weird place, or at least I am. I'll speak for myself, no one else here. I'm still in a little bit of a weird place where, I'm boosted and vaxxed, and COVID seems to not be as much of an immediate threat. So I'm slowly but surely letting myself get excited for doing in-person things with crowds. So I'm very, very excited that this year's Arkham Nights got announced early enough that people can actually plan for it, hopefully.
Yeah.
That was a big one. But then also that we actually ostensibly get to be involved. So just very, very excited for it. It's going to be a blasty blast this year.
Mm-hmm.
As it often is. All right, boys, let's move it into the main Tupac for this evening. So, spoiler alert for anyone hanging around that doesn't want to talk about the crazy scenario in the Edge of the Earth campaign that is Fatal Mirage.
Mm-hmm.
this is your moment to pause and come back when you've done it.
Hopefully you have by now. It's been a while, but I don't judge.
I assume nothing. So there you go. You had your moment.
Fair.
All right. So Fatal Mirage. This is a very, very okay. So I have to say, like on the top here, Fatal Mirage is one of the first scenarios that to me is like very much an artifact of the new release model. They could not have done something like this with the prior release model.
Absolutely.
So it's an interesting thing to see. Basically, as I recall, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, you can play Fatal Mirage 3 times throughout the campaign if you fulfill the criteria and decide to step through the creepy door.
Mm-hmm.
But the first one's a little hard to get. You have to have 3 names crossed off at the end of Ice and Death 2. Is that when it is? Here, I have the campaign log right here. Yeah, so you have to have lost 3 partners by the time you hit that in order to have access to all the plays of Fatal Mirage. I personally have never done that. Anyone else? Like I've yet to like lose my...
I've only played it the once, but aren't you and I about to have it in the campaign we're playing with Brian?
Oh, you're totally right.
We just had everybody wiped.
We doomed out and lost 3 3 partners in one go.
Yep.
I completely forgot about that. Okay, well, that's on the horizon then. That'll be fun.
Yeah. I've never hit it right after the first scenario. That's what
Mm-hmm.
That's luckily. I mean, that's a pretty big wipe though, to hit it after Ice and Death, I feel.
Well, thanks, Scott. We were trying. We did our best.
Yeah, looking forward to that. But basically, this is thematically you're going into a kind of dreamish world. Whether or not it's actually a dream as we understand dreams is kind of up in the air, to say the least. But you're basically going in and exploring the memories of the various partners. So mostly what this scenario is kind of going along these different, I want to just say streams of consciousness, these different paths of locations to finally reach kind of the, I guess, the encounter for a specific partner. Is that fair to say?
Mm-hmm.
And if you succeed, you get to upgrade your partner and get the Resolute version. You know, if Edge of the Earth is a BioWare game, then these are your loyalty missions for each of your partners.
Yeah.
So pretty big fan there.
Mm-hmm. The Resolute allies are quite good as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just paging through them here. Most of them, like, you either get additional uses or additional bonuses, or for some of them, the what was a hard action becomes a free triggered ability.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and Phylion's got a full map of Fatal Mirage here. Oh, yeah, okay, on TTS. Wow, look at that web.
Yeah, it's huge.
Like,
and
if
this
you were
is why I never play it the third time. Because just, no thank you.
Yeah, if you pull out the full map, it gets really big.
Mm-hmm. I
have found, though, I guess maybe I'm just bad at Arkham Horror, the card game, but I have never made the map that big. I think the most, I've played it twice in a campaign, so I think the most Resolute partners that I've obtained is like 4 in a single campaign. But yeah, that is crazy. So this one is almost, I want to say, like, obviously it's a full scenario. It's got plenty of its own mechanics, but I want to say, like, within the context of the Edge of the Earth campaign, this is almost kind of more character flavor than it is anything else.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to agree with you that it feels like it's not, I guess to me, I don't know if you're saying this, but it's not a scenario that has a lot of moving parts or interesting mechanics. It's more about the story and the flavor and the resolutions you can get. But the scenario itself, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a scenario. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And on a face check playthrough, when you're first learning the partners and, you know, the first time you've been through this, you also have to kind of like guess who you're chasing. when you go down these halls. Like, you get a little bit of an inkling on some of the backs of the locations that have the story text, but it is a little bit of a crapshoot your first time through if you're trying to target a specific partner. But yeah, so let's see here. I'm going to count it out. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 total locations, which I think possibly makes the biggest map in the game. Is that accurate? Someone correct me if I'm wrong. 19 locations is pretty big.
Yeah, I think as far as like getting them all laid out, because there's some maps where I think they might have more than 19 locations, but they phase in and phase out or whatnot. Like, goodness, what's the last one of Dunwich?
Oh, Lost in Time and Space.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. So
that would make sense. But as it were, you essentially go through these different locations. We've got the Mirage keyword, which basically lets you pull out one of the listed Mirage connections by spending the clues. And that's kind of the function of clues within the scenario, is basically just to continue to open up the map. And then you go through and get your partners. I don't know. Like, I keep trying to describe this, but I keep saying the same thing, so maybe I should stop.
I mean, it is basically what you're saying, though. Like, it's a very rudimentary, it's a rudimentary addition and it's a rudimentary scenario, but the value of it comes from the story of Edge of the Earth, of the entire campaign, right? Like, this scenario on its own in a vacuum isn't very interesting or startling or anything like that. Like, it's just go find the path you need to get your objective. But the value of the objective is in the story and whatnot, as well as the Resolute characters, because they're quite good. But yeah, it's a heart scenario. It's not a brain scenario.
Now, Scott, this sounds like it's a just throwaway comment, but I would actually love to see how you would classify a lot of the other scenarios in other campaigns on a spectrum from heart and brain.
And then somehow end up summoning Captain Planet by mistake.
Yeah.
I imagine.
I don't know, man.
I mean, you probably have like 2 or 3 where you're just like, okay, the rest of these are heart to brain, and these 3 are just spleen.
Yeah. This one's more of a trachea.
Oh my.
So yeah. I'm willing to try it. I'll just make people mad. That's what's going to happen.
I mean, it'll just be what we're going to eventually have to do with like a March to Madness will be scenarios, so it'll be fine. We'll get there. We'll get there.
That sounds actually really fun. But
Heart to Madness.
Oh my god.
Ooh.
See what I did there?
Writing it down.
No. It's such an obscure ass joke, and it wasn't good.
Writing it down in wipe off marker.
So, I mean, do you guys have, let's talk about kind of strategies for this scenario. Do you guys have any particular thought as to how you move through?
My goal is basically to try to head to the objective as quickly as possible, and then
Well, how do you determine the objective, Scott?
Isn't it based on, like, I remember like reading location, like the text on the locations and stuff, and feeling like I understood where I was supposed to go. And then like the second and third and fourth time I played it, like in future scenarios, I wasn't as interested in trying to figure it out, and I just kind of looked and figured it out. I'm terrible that way.
But more or less, you're specifically shooting for upgrading specific partners? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I think because it gets harder the more locations you have open, I found. And so if you're going to replay it later on, because the locations you flip in the first one, you still keep flipped in the second and third, right?
Yep.
Or they don't start with, so in order to make those playthroughs more manageable, I like get one partner the first time, get the second partner the second, like, you know what I mean? And don't dick around, like just get it done, and then when you're done, leave and just resign. And it makes the second and third playthrough a lot easier, or a lot more manageable, and more likely that you're going to get those Resolute allies.
Yeah, and various peeps in the chat here are kind of pointing out that it is another one of those limited time clock push your luck scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, one of the key parts of it is just kind of recognizing when you need to cash it in.
Yep.
And that's tough because, particularly for me, because I love playing with David Renfield. So when I see like 20, or was it like 15 Doom on the first act or the first agenda? Yeah, 15 Doom. On version 1, agenda 1A. So like you feel like that's forever. Like you have so much time, but ultimately 15 turns is not a ton in Arkham Horror, the card game.
It's only half your deck.
Yeah, and there's only one agenda, so while it feels like a big number, that's really just like, splitting up 3 or 4 agendas over the... Normally you'd split up 3 or 4 agendas over 15 turns.
Yeah, like if it was an 8 and 7, same thing.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys have a favorite? I know we talked about partners at the beginning of the campaign too, but do you guys have a favorite partner at this point that you like to try to upgrade, or is that like pretty much entirely deck dependent? Or
I can say I don't, just because I've only been through it the once and seen a few of them. So Scott, I think you're gonna be better able to speak to that.
Yeah, I really enjoy Alaya, because when she comes back, she has like the super evade, so you evade at 6 and you get a move. Basically, what's that mystic spell? Not cloak, mists of really, yeah. It's essentially a mists. Also, and you get the dog when she dies. And then also James Cookie Fredericks, because you get his gun, and then also he comes back with the super fight where you fight at 6, and if you hit them, they can't fight for the rest of the turn, which is pretty awesome. So
it's a disabling shot.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's also a good thing to point out, I suppose. If you have partners that have died, the other option, aside from being able to upgrade to Resolute, is to go get the item instead, the item that they leave behind. So for Alaya, it's on you. Would recommend. But yeah, they're interesting. I think the problem that I always come down to when I talk about like, okay, what's your strategy with the partners, is that it's so hard to have a strategy with the partners. Obviously, you'll have ones that you just think are going to be better to play with at any given moment. But as far as planning on a campaign level, it's so tough because they're all at risk always.
100%.
Unless some of your Resolute ones step in and save other ones. I don't know. It's complicated. You can't speak in absolutes here, but like I've definitely had my heart broken before by banking too much on having a certain partner around.
Yeah. Especially like first scenario or one of the random losses. It just, if you've built your whole deck around like, I'm going to try and keep, Takata alive so I can just pump out resources like a madman for my first 3 or 4 turns. And then she dies in a plane crash. And you're like, oh, well, that was cool. Neat.
I mean, it's
Takata.
It's thematic.
That's true.
Because no one is safe at the edge of the earth.
Oh my god. Whoa. Amazing.
I don't know what that sound effect was. I suppose the other thing to mention is when you get into the final room, basically for each partner, if they're alive, you actually have a big nasty memory hop out, which is kind of a little mini boss, and they're somewhat tough depending on which one you're talking about. But if they are gone, then all you have to do is basically loot the room, and you get 2 victory points for clearing the location.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's 2. Also in chat here, Big Kahuna and Vinny B are talking. I was making a comment about getting the item and the Resolute people. You either get Resolute or you get the item, but with someone like Cookie, like you either get a great gun or you get a great Resolute ally that can attack basically like a gun.
With a gun.
Yeah.
You get a guy attached to the gun.
Yeah, a stun gun, apparently.
You get a meat holster for the gun.
Mm-hmm. That sounds great. Or terrible.
Yeah. Definitely both.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. It hangs me up sometimes because they've got one art for all of the different memories, right? And the memories themselves are so variable. You've got memory of a missing father, unrequited love, unspeakable evil, terrible memory, regretful voyage, a ravaged country, a hunt gone awry. Who is that? Oh, that's Elia. An alien translation, and a lost patient. And they're all the same kind of like creepy. Honestly, the art is just like jacked up pallid mask art, to be honest.
Yeah.
So you have to use your theater of the mind a little bit when it comes down to actually tangling with these things, if you're like going deep into the theme of it.
Mm-hmm.
But all of them have some way you can spend clues? No, they all have some way that's related to the partner that they have to do extra damage to them.
Yeah. Like Takata, I think you can spend resources it?
Takata, after you gain one or more resources while
That's
it's exhausted, deal a damage.
Yeah.
Yeah, memory of a missing father.
Takata's been my favorite. I don't know if you've noticed.
It's
I've mentioned
pretty
her a
easy
bunch.
to love money.
Yeah. I mean, when you're like, hey, I can guarantee first 3 turns, I'm going to have a emergency cash every turn. It's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
You can build a deck around that.
So then, ultimately, when you decide enough's enough, basically, you can resign out and then re-enter the real world, as it were. So, I mean, I think the other thing is that it's not necessarily a dream, right? Like, there's some interaction with the Eidolon mist or whatever the ancient one is behind the vault that's manipulating the world around us.
Yeah, and I mean, even the resolution questions like a dream, but I don't think it is. I think it is a reality. It's just not this reality. Because there's permanent effects on actual reality from this, so it can't really be a dream.
Oh yeah, and Volklos points out something important in the chat, which I actually should have remembered because it affected me this last time. It doesn't just have a resign button on this scenario. You get the option to resign once you've completed someone's quest line, basically.
Yeah.
So that can really mess with your math if you're not paying attention for that, or if you don't know it's coming.
Yeah, and that's a big thing too about the whole push your luck thing. Is I think once you start a second story, you can't resign, or no, because you can once you've done one story. Now I'm misremembering it. Because I feel like if you start a second story, you can't resign until you complete it.
Correct.
Yeah. So once
the
you
opportunity
commit
to
it.
advance the act is on the back of the memories. So
Right.
like you defeat the memory, you flip it, you can advance the act or continue playing.
Yeah.
There's no resign beyond that.
And that's why I've always kind of been like, I just get the one, be done, get out. Because you don't want to go for 2 and then get hosed.
I do, though. Too often.
Yeah. Fair enough.
But yeah. So, resolution-wise, there's not a whole lot of variance there. It's really just you like return to camp with you either get defeated or you return to where you were with what you got. So, and the other thing I suppose that bears mentioning is this scenario, similar to the other ones, has kind of a persistent board state. So when you come back, you get to put things back into play that you'd already discovered. Or discovered. What's the...
Yeah, memories discovered and memories banished.
There it is. Banished is the other one. So that's fun. At least that you don't have to start from scratch every time. So you could, I don't know. Do you think there's a strategy there where you like push down one way and almost complete it, but then redirect and go finish that one or go finish like say number 2, so that way when you load up the scenario a second time in the campaign, the like most of the work on the other one's already done.
I've never thought to do that, but that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, me neither. I'm gonna have to try that next time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think now we have to make in our campaign with Brian. Now we have to go into the Mirage ASAP.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Finally says, yeah, that's what you have to do to clear more, which makes sense because you've only got so much time, and sometimes you've got like 3 or 4 Doom left when you get to make that choice as to whether you're advancing and stopping or not. And you're like, oh god, I could do so much with that. Like, you don't want to leave those turns on the table when you're going to come back later. So
if I pass exactly every single test and don't get bogged down at all, I can do this.
Yeah.
A fool's errand.
Yeah, it's an interesting scenario. I think it sits in a cool place in this campaign. I do like the ability to, since it is so big and has so many like rabbit holes effectively that you get to chase down. I'm a pretty big fan of kind of peppering it in. I will be interested to see what more they do with scenarios like this going forward, kind of the non-linear, it fits, maybe not anywhere in the story, but in multiple places in the story. I have to imagine that's a thing that they'll expand on going forward.
Yeah, that feels like a really neat mechanic that only these this new structure can handle. But I love it. I love it. I love the idea of like, man, like imagine having a campaign where you have like a home base. And you have to go back and, I don't know. There's a lot of interesting ideas I have, I think.
I guess I have to say that was one of my assumptions or hopes for the Scarlet Keys. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, same based on the map.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what they do with that. All right. Well, any final thoughts on Fatal Mirage before we move into our post-mortem of the Edge of the Earth campaign as a whole?
None
here. I don't think so. I think it's... And I don't mean this in a bad way. It's really straightforward to me. It's... Yeah, I don't know. It's a scenario that... I think it has a lot more story implications than mechanical implications. Like, you do get those resolute allies, and they're nice, but they're like just a slight bump from their old one. Like, I wouldn't even say they're incredibly better. They're better, but... yeah. Have you guys... Because you can skip it completely.
Yeah.
Have you guys played a campaign where you're just like, no?
No, not yet. Normally when Arkham Horror asks me if I want to play more Arkham Horror, the answer is yes. But but if we're talking like actual like efficiency and strategy and whatnot, I could very easily see making the decision to just like not mess with Fatal Mirage at all because as in any Arkham scenario, things could go sideways, so there's risk involved just in taking it on, and depending on what you're looking to do with the partners, the reward, as you said, is good, but it's not like I don't need this to finish the campaign out, so I could see skipping it.
Yeah,
I fully expect when we get to Edge of the Earth Iron Man for you to come back and be like, well, I wanted to play it, but we need to skip it.
Well, I don't know. Like, I feel like maybe the first one's worth it, depending on who dies and such. I think that might be like a game time decision, or we plan to say, okay, we're gonna go once, and we'll decide who we're going for once we get there.
I almost feel like that's the type of thing you put just, I don't know, pride points on or something of, hey, we got through it, and how many times did you go into the Mirage?
Yeah, I feel like that's gonna be with Innsmouth too, with the keys, like. The pride points is trying to go for the full ending, but it's just going to be RNG whether you can or not.
Yeah,
and
right.
Same thing with Mirage, like RNG whether we can go 3 times.
Yeah,
man, I'm fully expecting our Kensler to die during Iron Man, and she's probably going to be the last one, just because I'm just calling it now.
Almost all the way to the end, and then just snatch defeat from the jaws of victory.
That's right. Such as the Mythos Buster's way.
That's how we do.
Oh yeah,
we did discuss plot armor though, that she can't die from RNG, or you can choose one partner to not die from the RNG deaths. So, but if you take them into a scenario and y'all die, that's your fault. So,
and rules are rules, but when we're planning an entire day around a specific strategy, that's the thing I'd consider more often than if I were just playing a normal campaign on myself.
yeah, to me that's the spirit too of like the drawing of the weaknesses, right? Where you draw one and you can say no, absolutely not, right? If it's the one you didn't want. So
Well, and that's what I was just going to suggest, Scott, because I like that there is still some of that variability there, and I say that because what I like about it is that picture we have of Ian dropping an F-bomb from drawing exactly the card he didn't want to see. And so it's awesome that could happen in a campaign, in theory. But to Sean's point, when you are spending an entire day on it, it would be nice to at least have hey, we're going to draw it, and then we get one redraw.
yeah, just an idea. I think that's probably what we'll go for. But and I know some people will not agree with that. But this time too, like my most recent playthrough with Edge, I know like there's been. And maybe my last one, there's just been some times where I'm like, I don't want to lose a certain ally because my deck is humming along with it, or I do want to lose one because I want to get either their item or the Resolute, and I'll just do they die, like they randomly die, and I know someone will throw flack at me, but you know what? I'm just having fun. So
it's almost like you're playing the game in the way you can enjoy it the most, which is the direction we've received from someone who, I don't know, designs the game.
And sometimes I enjoy the RNG too. Honestly, like it just depends on the campaign and what my goals are for my deck and what my goals are for the campaign. So 6 of one, half does the other.
Really funny that you say that, Justin, because and there's probably a whole ass episode we can do on this. But even when MJ or any other developer would be like, oh yeah, this house rule, cool by me, like the most basically like the second most official blessing you could get next to them like printing it in the FAQ.
Yeah,
like there's still a part of my brain that resists being like, no, but those aren't the real rules, but those aren't the rules. Like there's I think that's really interesting how we conceive of rules sets within gaming communities in particular.
Right. Well, and that's fine. I am the same way. But it's more to Scott's point about some people giving flack about it, because like I want to play basically rules as printed unless it's, hey, there's something new that's come out and it'll probably be addressed in an FAQ later. Okay, fine, we'll house rule that. But I'm not going to give anyone flack if they play a different way.
Yeah.
But I am definitely, as I continue to write things down tonight, writing that down for an episode idea, because that actually sounds awesome. Because we could talk about that, talk about how we approach taboo, and so on.
And I think it'd be really neat to gather up all the house rules that people have from the community and just talk through as many as we can. Because I think like there's been a lot of times where I've read someone's house rule, like, chatting on Discord. I'm like, that is really interesting. Like, I might not use it, or maybe I will, but I find that really fun. And that's something I might pass on to someone else who, I don't know, they post somewhere and like, oh, I'm not really having fun with this, or I'm struggling with this. I'm like, have you tried X or Y? And to just give a stage to all those house rules, I think would be really fun, because you might discover one that you didn't think of, and it's one that gets you more enjoyment out of Arkham. Who knows?
Well, let's just start the ball rolling on that. Let's put a call out now, and then over our next couple episodes. If anybody has house rules that they use, send them to us via email so we can easily track them. mythosbusterspod@gmail.com, or call the hotline at the number I am now spacing on. So if somebody could help me out.
203-493-6984.
Excellent.
That's 203-493-MYTH.
Thank you.
Or if you're on Facebook on mobile, you can just go to our page and click call us or whatever.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, we'll add that to our show notes and ask that for the next 3-4 episodes. And I think that's gonna be a real fun discussion.
Yeah, because like throughout the life of the game, people have tossed those at us, when we've talked about it from time to time, and there are some really cool ones. And there are some ones like the one Network just posted in chat, where like the game itself has more or less adopted it as we've gone on. Story assets don't take up the ally slot on the scenario in which you gain them mid-game. I know, right? Like nothing's worse than like like Francis Morgan kicking out your fucking Milan. Like,
Yeah.
no one wants that. No one planned for that.
And that was before the ruling about slot limits, where like, if Francis Morgan came in, like now, if Francis Morgan comes in and you have Milan, he comes into play, and then you have to discard down to one ally.
Then
so you could
check your
discard
limit,
Francis
yeah.
Morgan. Yeah. But before it was like, no, yeah, he boots Morgan out the door, and oof, ouch.
Yeah. So anyway, send those to us. That'd be very interesting to hear.
And then wrapping it back to Edge of the Earth, I think it is a good house rule for if we were doing that, because, man, can you imagine if we roll it to like we're getting to 8 o'clock at night and all of a sudden we've planned a certain way and then bye-bye.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's pretty much just Kensler, right? Is anyone going to
Yeah.
give plot armor to anyone else? I mean, I guess if you like hate frost tokens, you might give it to like Claypool.
Oh yeah, yeah. Ooh, yeah.
But as much as I don't like frost tokens, like I don't know if I'm willing to give it to Claypool. I'd give it to Ellsworth over Claypool. That's just me though.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk about how we want to handle it. If it's just, full plot armor, Kensler, or one redo each time, or something.
Draw two, pick one, something like that. Two of them start falling out of the plane, and you have to grab one of them.
Oh, that's a cool story beat right there.
That is, yeah.
That's like
Who do you-
straight up out of like a Telltale game.
Oh my goodness. Oh, maybe we just do that. Oh, so like you can give plot armor to Kensler, but you have to you have to let someone's hand go in order to do it.
Ooh.
As Cookie's like falling out of the plane, there's a little prompt on screen. Cookie will remember this.
Yeah. Well, not for long.
Oh, fantastic! Okay, I actually really like that idea.
I got slight chills from that. That was good. I like that.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Oh man. Yeah, the
Okay.
plane starts going down and like the doors open on either side, and there's two of your friends, one on either side, and you can only reach one of them. Who do you reach for? Ooh. Ooh. Okay, I like that actually. a
Now
lot
you
more
turned
than
it.
plot armor.
Now you turned that choice into both a brain and heart choice.
Yes, now it's both.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I like where this is going. So.
All right. Well, let's workshop that.
Mhm.
All right. So rounding it back then to Edge of the Earth as a campaign, and Toto. Toto? En Toto? I don't know. There's a word there somewhere. We've talked about it a lot as we've gone through. I think it's a really cool, just kind of to start us off. I think it delivered pretty much what I was hoping out of the like first big box post Mythos pack format.
Mm-hmm.
I personally, on the story level, really, really liked what it did with the partners, because it informed you of them as characters. It made you care about them, so that way when they died, their death actually had some weight to it. And also, I don't know, At the Mountains of Madness is still my favorite Lovecraft story, so to be able to dive deeper into that, and like not only diving deeper into the mythology of the elder things, but like the fact that it is a straight up sequel to a la the Dunwich Legacy, like Dyer and Danforth go with you. Just so tickled by that.
Yeah, I think the layout was really interesting. If I have to find something negative to say,
You don't, but go ahead.
but you know what I mean, because I also don't want to. Well, actually, I don't care if I sound like this. Like I gush about Arkham. I love Arkham, and pretty much everything. I have a positive view on Arkham for the most part. I think sometimes the tracking in between scenarios that you have to maintain, like Ice and Death, you know what I mean? And also Fatal Mirage. Sometimes I found that like a little bit but I don't see any other way to do it besides just not doing it and doing it a completely different way, like where you don't have memory between the scenarios. But I like the memory of the scenario enough that I'm willing to do the bookkeeping. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I found Ice and Death maybe a little bit repetitive by the third scenario, but also it was really good build up, so I'm also okay with that. I think, Sean, you put in the story of the partners is so great. Like the fact that we just discussed, like having to like kick one out of the airplane is like, oh, between two of them, like they're not real people, guys. Like they're just cards, but we actually care about them as you would a character in a book.
Yeah.
I think that was really well done.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the storytelling in this is just top notch overall. And I greatly enjoy Edge, but it's clear there's also some learning going on here too, in terms of shifting to this new model. But because the story is so good, even when there is like the bookkeeping stuff you mentioned, Scott, I'm more than willing to give that a pass, because one, I'm entertained by the story and I'm drawn in, and two, this is like the 1.0 version of the rest of Arkham, and if this is where it's already at, that's amazing.
Yeah, and I feel that, like you said, there's some learning going on, just like there was as Arkham is starting. But like already it's fantastic, right? And the thing is too that I'm seeing there's a lot of experimentation, which I love when Maxine experiments.
Weird Maxine is best Maxine. I've
Weird
said it
Maxine
before, I'll
is
say it
best
again.
Maxine. Yes, absolutely. And I think that like her and Jeremy make a great team, because they've described this as well among themselves, like in interviews and streams and stuff, is Maxine is that wild shoot for the stars, oh my god, let's see what happens, and like Jeremy's like, okay, let's just balance this, let's make sure it works, and I see them both at work in this, where you've got crazy wazoo stuff with Maxine, and then some walled off area, like what do you call them, like bumpers at a kid's bowling thing,
Yeah, lane bumpers, yeah.
Yeah, lane bumpers. And I don't know, like they just, both of them worked well together, and I just feel like I see it in this campaign.
I think that's
even
fair.
among the player cards too.
Oh, sorry, Justin, what'd you say?
Well, I was just saying, I think that's fair. I agree. It's definitely. I haven't said it, so I will agree. Weird Maxine is best Maxine, but yeah, the guardrails that are in place so that it still feels like you're playing Arkham. It still feels like you've got some control, but then man, it can throw some stuff at you, which is awesome.
Yeah, so Scott, to your point, I really liked what they kind of tried to do, because you got the big box like this, they could really go any number of scenarios depending on how they want to structure it. And what they elected to do with this one is to have multiple scenarios take place on the same map and be affected by it. So it's almost like they pulled a little bit of like legacy game design a little bit into Arkham. Yeah, it's not as lasting as a lot of legacy games, but throughout your campaign, that will obviously affect what you have going on. But I also agree that by the time you hit Ice and Death Part 3, I'm like, all right, let's just kill these things and get out of the ice. I want to get onto the mountain. If they do something like this again, I would either like to see a little bit more change to what's going on to the map by the time we hit scenario 3, or let's just call it at 2 and move on to the next map.
Yeah. Well, it's funny with Ice and Death is if you do well enough in scenario 1, you can actually skip 2 altogether as well. Maka brings up a point too, saying, just thinking in 5 years, Edge of the Earth will be the Dunwich legacy of the new release model. Nostalgic, but so different and almost basic compared to the newer campaigns.
Yeah, probably.
And I just have to say to that, if this is basic, like I cannot imagine what the Dream Eaters of the new release model is. Like, my brain cannot comprehend or fathom what that is going to be.
I'm already, like, my dissonant voices bone is weeping already thinking about what's probably coming at us for Scarlet Keys. Like, I'm excited, and I'm very, like, I love doing those. It's a very fun project, but also my time is finite, and there's a lot of text, and it's probably not getting any less as we go forward.
We'll see Sean in a few months after it has released, because that's all his free time is going to be.
I feel like I was gonna say in like a couple boxes, it's gonna be actually 3 boxes: player cards, scenario cards, and then the manual will just become in its 3rd box.
It's called a tome, Scott.
Yeah.
Yes. Well,
it'll
like
just be the campaign expansion, the investigator expansion, and then just a copy of the Necronomicon to go with it.
or like how you can get those box sets of like Lord of the Rings, like 3 books, and just, or like what's it called? Dark Tower, where it's like 7 or 8 books. It's like each scenario you just pull out a novel and here you go.
So jumping back to the point about in 5 years where Edge will be compared to what comes out after, think about this too. Back when we were getting into the game, you could get the core, and then Dunwich came out and it was there. So if someone new jumped in, that's what they had. Now if someone is getting into the game, in theory, they could just start with a core and Edge. Like, this could be where they are learning the game.
Yep.
Isn't that bonkers?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. Now is a really interesting time to get into the little side note, but an interesting time to get into the game, because all those the old campaigns are getting re-released in the box set version now. And to have all the cards that are eroded, have them eroded, and no more shopping around for packs, and you can just be like, I want this campaign now. Boink, I want this campaign. You know what? And they're coming out at such a pace, like it's once every 4 months ish. Like it's incredible pacing. So like if someone's getting into the game now, like they're getting what, 3 to 4 campaigns a year. Whew.
That is crazy, and that's also good. Like, it breaks my heart a little bit, or it did back when this was a problem. But like to watch new players, when FFG was, they'd always have those supply swings where like we're awaiting a reprint of a certain set, right? And stock shelf of that set is scant in a lot of places, and you'll see these players just be like, all right, I'm 3 scenarios into this campaign and was hoping I would just buy the next one, and I cannot find it.
Yeah.
And that's just not great. And we've been saying it since the early days of the game that a big box format would make more sense, and by golly, I do feel a little bit vindicated at this point, because it just does. And it's really cool to see the new boxes get released. It's weird to think of the new player experience nowadays, how different and varied it probably is compared to what we had.
And not just the scenarios too. Like you said, John, there's been times where there's been a single pack out. I remember
Phantom of Truth, I'm looking at you.
Yeah, Phantom of Truth, and the Dunwich one where you go to the library or the museum with the big snake.
Miskatonic Museum, because it had freaking charisma in it.
Yeah, that
R.I.P. stock.
Yeah, and of all cards you could easily proxy, like charisma. Sometimes I literally have a post-it note on a deck that just says 2x charisma.
Sometimes I just have it on my deck list in Arkham DB.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just think about adding it to my deck.
This card just exists. Okay.
Those are interesting house rules, you guys.
Yeah. Now too, you also get through the that's not an issue, but I know there was new players who were saying, well, it's something we all experience, where you're going through the campaign and we're getting new packs and new cards, like, oh, this level 0 card in pack 5 would have been really great back when I built my deck, right? And so you had to like house rules slightly that you could put that card in your deck or replace a card or whatnot. And then also I would see a lot of newer players be like, oh, should I only add the cards as I go along? Like, or should I open up all the packs and just grab all the player cards and then play through the scenarios? And most people would recommend they just open all the packs, grab the player cards, and get to it. But now, like, that's almost explicit. Like, here's all your player cards. There's the scenarios. So,
well, and even getting back to my understanding of the development of these things is they're developed in cycles, and you just get all of that work at once. You get the whole fruit. You don't get the orange wedge by wedge. You get the whole orange, the peel, the pips. It needs to be depipified, I guess, or whatever we said earlier. But yeah, you get the whole thing, and whatever player, in particular with the player cards, whatever mechanic or traits or whatever that that cycle's playing with, you just get to do that instead of what you said, Scott, where you have this deck that's playing around with bless or curse, but oh boy, this deck will be so good in 2 packs when I get the card it's really for. Like, you don't have to mess with that anymore, which is really cool.
I am with Big Kahuna, though. He's mentioning in the chat too. As an avid player and a constant player, that drip feed was also really nice. Like every month, getting a new scenario and getting new player cards and that excitement, right? Like, I really enjoyed that. But I can definitely see the tons of positives we're getting from the new model, even in like scenario design, right? Like especially that, and campaign design, as we're seeing with Edge of the Earth. So.
And I'll agree there too, and I am glad that, like, from the content, producer perspective, it hasn't had as big of a drag as we thought it might.
No, it sure has not.
No, well, and if we can do anything, it's fill hours with talking. So I guess that never changed. But yeah, no, there is the flip side to it where it's fun when a new pack drops, and even though it's not very many cards to be able to just like whip that out, and if you're like me and kind of in the prior release model tended to stay away from player card previews and spoilers that I wasn't like involved in, it's really fun to open a pack and see a bunch of new stuff that you've not seen before. So it has been a little bit tough to say goodbye to that. It's not all sunshine and roses. So from the player card perspective, the Edge of the Earth box did some pretty big things.
Oh boy, did it ever.
What are your guys' feelings on multi-faction cards in general?
I love them. I think when we saw those first in, was it Dream Eaters? No, it was Circle and Done.
Yep.
Circle and Done. I like them, and I was like, man, I can't wait to see more of these. And I love that they just went whole hog with it, and just like the original ones, right? You had a dual class at level 0, then it split up,
branching paths.
Yeah. Whereas this one's like, no, you know what? There's level 4 cards that are dual class. There's level 3 cards that are triple class, and there's cards that play around with how many classes you have in play. And I feel like it just, it helps a lot with the theme of certain cards. Like, you can just feel, like a sledgehammer just feels like both Guardian and Survivor, right? Big weapon, but it's a tool that you just picked up off the ground, right? Like, it just feels great. And I think it also allows them to design more cards for more investigators at once, especially when we're looking at how many investigators we have. Like, to give every single one of them a bigger card pool by just making each card on average more accessible to them. I really like that design choice. I hope that multi-class cards are here to stay. Like, that is a normal thing we'll be seeing forever.
So, and I'm not saying I believe this, I'm just putting the position to you. I think a lot of people, at least when they were announced, I don't know if I saw so much chatter about it after they got released, but do you feel like with multi-class cards that it negatively blurred the faction lines in any meaningful way?
I don't think so, but I'm also of the mind that I'm okay with some blurring, as long as it makes sense for both the classes. Like Sledgehammer, right? It easily fits in both of those. Let me try and grab another one. Brand of Cthulhu. A lot of Guardians have okay willpower, but they're also okay fighting.
That's actually a really good one to maybe illustrate the point, because you could argue that Brand of Cthulhu it's got, it's not like crazy powerful. It's not busting the world in half or anything, but not until that card did Guardians have an arcane only damage option. And any Guardian presumably can take that. Is it a weapon? Is it considered a weapon, or is it a spell?
It is a spell.
I think it's just a spell. Yeah, so any Guardian can take that,
Yep.
And I think maybe that one, to my mind, feels more mysticky than Guardian.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I don't know what my point is here.
I think, I don't know, the fact that you can spend multiple charges to like beef up the attack feels Guardian to me. Like you have a variable amount of damage that you can control, feels more Guardian, and the fact that you can either use combat or willpower for it. And then you still have the downside of if you succeed by 0, like that's very Mystic. So I think I'm okay with that. You know, like it's Guardian's first foray into using their arcane slots as damage output. And I mean, we already have someone like Sister Mary who is a Guardian but also Mystic, but you know, maybe the Lord is helping her with her brand of Cthulhu. You know, like it fits in the theme of her.
Well, and Scott, I can jump in there because to me, and I'm less in the weeds with maybe the details of all the cards, but when I see the multi-class, it lets me think about deck building more from the character standpoint than the class standpoint. And so it starts to go to the theme of like that Sister Mary example that you mentioned, where, okay, sure, maybe back to Sean's comment about the brand being more a Mystic thing. Okay, but maybe this other build I'm using for a Guardian, well, they happen to, in their backstory, have, I don't know, got some different knowledge. And so then it fits there. And for a game like Arkham, where it is that nice mix of a card game and a little bit of the role play, I think that's where they fit very nicely for me.
Yeah, and to build on that too, like looking at Brand of Cthulhu, the level 4 version, I don't think as a Guardian very often I'm going to use that instead of, like, if I'm looking at, like, you know, super numbers, super efficient Scott Brain, I think Guardian has a lot of better options for level 4, like those bigger level 4, level 5 weapons than Brand of Cthulhu. But as a story thing, if that's what you're going for, or your Sister Mary and you're using your hands for something else, like, it makes sense. And I'm okay with that little bit of bleed, because it's not like Brand of Cthulhu, even though it's multi-class, it's not pushing out level 3 shriveling, for instance, or I don't feel it that way. And it's also not pushing out flamethrower. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's offering more opportunity, but it's not crowding out other things. And so that's why I'm okay with it.
Okay. Yeah, and you know, I asked the question, but ultimately where I'm at is I remember hearing that kind of faction bleed criticism a lot more during the Lord of the Rings days. You hear it time to time here. But I do think the fact that, like, from the get-go, investigators were more about, like, their specific card access and abilities rather than, you know, this belongs to this class and this class only, and it can only do this class's things. So I feel like maybe just in its DNA, Arkham is a little bit more immune to that criticism. But I am always a fan of things that expand deck building options. If there's a thing that makes it so that a wider variety of you know, mechanically distinct decks can see success, I'm generally going to be for that. And I feel like that's a huge part of what multi-class did. Just, you know, in this one expansion, it added so many options to so many investigators. You know, we had definitely hit like critical deck building mass in this game prior to Edge dropping, and now it's exponential. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I think my counter argument to the posit that the bleed is not a good thing, or it's becoming overwhelming. I'm just thinking of when I build decks, like, how many multi-class cards am I taking? Is it 50% of my deck? No, it's like 10%, maybe 15%. You know what I mean? And that
It's
to
like
me
2 to
just
6
proves
most
that,
times.
yeah, like it's not that big of a contribution to each individual deck, and I think that's a better argument than saying it feels like this class is blending into this or bleeding into this one and taking over things that they should be doing better than this one. It's like, maybe, sure, but those I'm not filling decks with cards that do that, and so I think that it may appear that way, but the outcome in deck building, and at least what I've seen on ArkhamDB, is it's not just a giant pile of multi-class cards. It's like 4 to 6, maybe 8 in a deck, in a 30-card deck, I should say. So.
In
Well,
your,
I kind of
in your next Chaos game, you need to do multi-class only.
Oh god. Are there enough
that
multi-class
could be
cards for that?
interesting. I think it depends on the investigator, probably.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah.
Make it ask, are there enough multi-class cards to build a Lola deck with nothing but multi-class cards?
Ooh.
At level 0, I don't.
Yeah, you'd
No.
need a butt ton of XP to shove them all in there.
I don't know. There's a lot of level 1, though.
Yeah, but there's a few level 5s, too.
And I guess we have all the level 0 ones from Circle.
That's true.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. It'd be close at level 0. I don't know if it'd be good. That's the only thing. Like, you'd just be actually just grabbing every multi-class card, you know what I mean? So, and I still feel like, and now, like, that as a thought experiment to me, I don't think that the multi-class cards are so much better than the single-class cards, because I'm thinking, like, okay, if I'm going to play Kluver Lola, and I have to use multi-class cards only, I'm like, but I really want my magnifying glasses, because those are just really good cards. And Maxine has even said, like, neutral cards should be less good than class cards, because everyone can take them, right? And
Right.
so the value in multi-class cards should be less than single class cards in general, because there's more access to it, right? The easier it is to access that card, the less powerful it should be. And I think like 95% of the cards follow that rule. And so that's kind of what makes me okay with a little bit of the bleed, because the bleed isn't as efficient as just having that other class as an off class.
Yeah. Makes sense.
I could go on and on about this, so I'm gonna stop myself, so it's not just Scott rants.
But as far as like what else happened in the player cards, here, let me pull that up, because the multi-class cards were a big part of it. We also got, I guess the class cards that we got were more or less built with the investigators themselves in mind, as they normally are. But God, the list is so big. There were so many cards in this expansion, and I always forget that. Damn. Okay.
And I found. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to move us on, so go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say there's a lot of cards too I found that made me go back and look at previous builds I had, and I don't know, just maybe it's just the way they came. Like, it was such a big volume all at once that I felt like I had so much to look at. But in reality, with the drip feed, I would have done the same amount of looking back. It's just this was all condensed instead of spread out over 7 months.
Right. The one thing that I kind of found, and I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before, is I think that one, for me, negative artifact of the new release model is that with that big dump of cards, I found it harder to try them all than if, and just like an exactly equal amount of cards had come out over the course of 6 months, or however long, the Mythos packs take.
100%.
Yeah, and I think that was just one thing where it's like, all right, I definitely had the set of cards that I wanted to try on my first look through, and then beyond that, I kind of had to, like, more so than in any other expansion, I had to remind myself that cards existed, because I only looked at them the once, and I needed to go back through the list again before I was like, oh, right, I did want to try that. It was my second string reactions. So that was, I guess, unfortunate, but
I think the one set of cards that really knocked it out of the park for me was the level 0 permanents. The ones that like short supply and underworld support and forced learning. I think those 5. The Mystic one and the Guardian one geared up and down the rabbit hole a little bit less. But
I think those require a little bit more, far more specific builds.
Yeah, but those three to me, Underworld Support, Force Learning, and
Short supply.
Short Supply, like, yeah, they were. Oh, and In the Thick of It, yes.
Oh
Phylon.
yeah, in the thick of it.
In the Thick of It has changed
Yep.
deck building,
Yep.
campaign deck building immensely. Like, yeah, Phylon, maybe that's its own discussion. What has
Might well be.
what has In the Thick of It done to this game? And I think it is very much positive.
It's made it so that most decks start with trauma, is what it's done.
Yeah, you start with trauma, but it also, like, there's so many cards or so many deck ideas where I'm like, I just need to get through the first scenario just to get a bit of XP, and my deck can flourish, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Thick of It, oh my goodness, what a beautiful card that is.
And
If
like
only we
then you throw In the Thick of It on top of Versatile,
Oh my god, that's gross.
and it's like the things that you can roll up to the beginning of a campaign with now are it's insane. It's insane. My brain can't handle it, so I refuse to.
Remember when we were going through TFA and we were all like, "Oh, I got a trauma from not having a blanket," and now we're like,
Joke's on you, I'm into that shit.
yeah, especially with all the Mystic cards, like was it Arcane Research or whatever all the arcane things are, and like there's all these things you can take, like like you can start with like 5 trauma, I think now,
That
like
sounds
rolling
about
with
right.
the first scenario, and people are doing that and succeeding. It just,
Yeah.
Oh my god, I love this game.
I was probably going to talk about it more on the next episode that we record, but I'm like setting myself up for kind of a challenge the next time we have a little bit of a content lull. And that's going to be to actually try to take a solo investigator through as many campaigns as I can before they're overwhelmed by trauma.
Oof.
And that's going to be its own fun thing, because I'm going to have to shoot for the resolutions that give the least trauma, even if they're not my favorite resolution. So that's going to be interesting. But yeah, just like what a difference, though, from the beginning of the game where we were just like petrified of getting trauma to now where it's just like, all right, bring it on.
And
Gladly.
look at that. Phylon mentioned like Mateo today, and you could do this, I guess, with Parallel Roland, because he gets 5 XP, right? Is he one of the parallels?
Yes, he does.
27 XP and 2 weaknesses going into a standalone. Right? Like that's
solid.
That's 2 XP away from where you'd normally have 3 weaknesses. So yeah, it's a card. I think it was very well planned that they made it limit 1 per. Anyways,
Yeah, we should table a discussion on experience,
yeah,
just in general.
experience, trauma. What's it worth to you?
Adding it to the list.
Hell yeah.
Thanks, Justin.
Guys, any final thoughts on the Edge of the Earth expansion before we finally close the book on this one?
It's fantastic. I can't wait to try Scarlet Keys. This only made me more excited for it.
Ditto.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, but I'm almost more excited about where the game goes from here because of how cool it was.
Yeah.
And I would say I was probably one of the I don't want to say loudest or biggest detractors of this new format when it was coming out, when it got announced. I was like, out of the 5 of us, I was probably the one who was like, oh, I don't like this the most. And I am happy to eat my hat on this one. So
We will get
Fantastic.
you a Mythos Busters hat and watch you eat it.
I will.
A
will
toque
not be-
even.
A toque,
A.
a knit beanie, a knit cap. Anyway.
All right. Well, guys, let's move it on into a little bit of Tentacle Time. Justin, what's been grabbing you lately?
Hades, and more Hades.
Ooh.
Are we just going to have the same Tentacle Time?
I mean, we probably are, but you know that because we end up messaging each other with updates. So,
Hashtag fuck Theseus.
yeah. So let's see. I think last time we had Tentacle Time, I mentioned I had picked it up again because you were.
And in true Justin form, he has already like tripled the output that I've achieved in the game.
I also love efficiency. No, I picked it up again, and I think part of tripling the output has actually been because I had played through it before. Like I'm still not even caught up to where I was before in terms of number of times I've played through on this run. But I'm much more successful at it because I know what works for my play style. So I'm playing through it. For anyone who has or who hasn't played it, you get different boons from the various Greek gods. But then as you get farther into the game, you get some of these boons that can either become legendary, and those are tougher to get, or duo boons, where it's two of the gods that are giving you their power at the same time. And you have to meet certain requirements and have certain prerequisites to get those. So now I'm going through and hunting those to fill out the list. But yeah, I think
Awesome.
I'm trying to remember what my last message to you was, Sean. I think I had got to, 26 times in a row I had beat the loop. And then
I'm still trying for 10 in total. is my next landmark.
Yeah, and then I had one where it was just the wrong combinations of rooms, and I made some poor choices and almost pulled out, but not quite. So that's
Man.
Oh, go ahead.
There are some runs where just like you see the room rewards for the next room and you're like, oh no, please come on, game.
Yeah, I at least on the one where I knew it was gonna end, because I got to the end, and that's the final boss of the run, and that's where it ended. I knew I could at least pay for some of the upgrades that are persistent that you can get, so I bought that to at least get something out of the run. But yep. No, so that's mainly what I've been doing, in addition to trying to get out and enjoy the nice weather we've had, and went to the Minnesota State Fair. For anyone who has not been, it's delightful if you like fried food. So that's me.
I don't know if I'm gonna make myself get to it this year, but probably next year, if not.
Well, we were saying we gotta get Scott there at some point. So maybe at some point we do Buster's Take the Fair.
Hell yeah.
Scott
will get you a deep fried Snickers bar, bitch.
All right. I've never been to a state fair, and it just looks like quite the experience. Let's call it that.
It is.
The people watching, it is the pinnacle of people watching. Just, chef's kiss.
One of my favorite things to do when I go to the state fair with friends is to do a people watching bingo card ahead of time. And it's all walks of life. Let's go with that.
Yeah. But no, we should definitely in a future year, maybe not next year, but down the road, we should find some time, get Scott and Ian in town, and then just open up if anybody else is going to be in town. Hey, come hang out at the fair with us, because it is an experience. And I mean that both lovingly and with a little bit of derision.
Last time I went to the state fair was pre-pandemic, and I got to see Weird Al perform live. And so it was his No Strings Attached tour. So he was touring with a live orchestra, and it was like the windiest day that summer. So first it was just unexpectedly cold. We were all dressed for like 85, 90 degree weather, and like it was 60 with a brisk wind. But then on top of that, the concert itself started like 45 minutes late because they had to like requisition stands that would actually hold the music through the wind. So it was just a disaster, but it was a great show. Weird Al is a national treasure. Anyway, Scott, what's been grabbing you?
Okay, super quick. Speaking of Weird Al, have you seen the trailer for the movie where Daniel Radcliffe? It's like a biographical movie of him.
I have seen posters. I haven't watched a trailer.
The trailer is absolutely fantastic, and it's very obvious that it is an absolute joke.
Okay.
Like, it's, like Weird Al, like, doing coke, going on LSD benders and all this stuff. Like, stuff that did not happen, and it's just made to make him look like this incredible rock star and, like, all these things he did, and I can't wait. Like, Daniel Radcliffe even from that trailer. Like, let's watch it together in our break between these episodes because it is just fantastic.
Sounds good.
So yeah, my Tentacle Time. You know, I'm gonna jump on the music train here.
Yes.
I got into Ghost and Sabaton over the last 2 days. Sabaton is this metal band from Sweden where like all their songs are based on war and like battles or people in wars.
Mm-hmm. Like actual historical.
Yeah, or like regiments and stuff like that. Man, it is pretty awesome. And like as someone who likes like song lyrics to mean something, the stories in the songs are absolutely fantastic. One of my favorite ones is Night Witches, which is this. There's an RPG about this, but basically it was these in World War II. Was it World War II or World War One? I think it was World War II. The Russians had an airborne group of women. World War II, thank you. Yeah, that makes sense actually with the technology now that I'm thinking about it. Basically, they had a bunch of women pilots who, you know, because misogyny in the 1940s, the Russians were like, okay, well, here, you can take these planes. And they were planes with like canvas wings and canvas bodies. Like they weren't metal structures. And they just gave it all to these women, but these women were actually excellent pilots. And what they would do is they would only fly at night, and their engines could be quieter because they didn't need to carry a big metal frame because it was all just like wood and canvas. But they would actually turn their engines off and just glide. And so they like whoever they're attacking would just hear like the fluttering of canvas. And then all of a sudden, guns and bombs and whatever, because they're just dropping stuff on them. And then they'd start up their engines and take off. But they couldn't hear them coming and they couldn't see them coming. All they heard was, when they got close, the flapping of canvas. And so they called them, it was like a witch's cape or dress flapping in the wind. And so that's why they called them the Night Witches. And I just think that story is absolutely amazing. And the song does tribute to that, so... yeah.
That is so badass.
It is, like, honestly, if you're bored one day, just go look up Night Witches and go read the Wikipedia. It is fascinating. It's amazing. So
my favorite one is The Last Stand, which is
that's good.
about a group of Swiss Guard defending the Vatican against a much larger force. The lyrics in the battle itself is fun. It's kind of like, you know, Catholic Battle of Thermopylae, I guess. But the song I thought was particularly good because the vocal part is almost composed like a hymn. Mm-hmm. And as an ex-Catholic who is also like a huge choir nerd, just the way that song is structured just hits so many little buttons in my brain, and it's a fantastic song.
That was the song that actually got me to listen to Sabaton. Or Sabaton.
Hell yeah.
Like today I was like, man, I gotta listen to these guys more, because I'd heard Sanctified by Dynamite, and that's on like one of my playlists. I'm like, oh, I like this song, but I never like connected them to Sabaton, because you and Nick and Justin, you two, like the three of you, have talked about Sabaton. Is it Sabaton or Sabaton?
I always call him Sabaton.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
I'm not going to correct anyone saying Sabaton, though.
I'm just going to go with I'm right, since I've seen them 3 times live. And I'm either not listening or that's what they are.
Like, we have a small little friends Discord that we just use for music recommendations and stuff. You guys have mentioned them like 1,000 times. But as I said in there, no one has pinned me down and forced me to listen to them. And finally I had to discover them all on my own. So, yeah.
Oh,
but The Last Stand is the one that hooked me.
I am so excited for you. And then, when I sent you a list earlier today, my wife and I were definitely in the checkout line at Target. I'm like, I got to respond to this because I need to send him this information. He needs to know.
This is time sensitive.
Yeah. And in chat, Big Kahuna is asking anything about the Great Northern War. And honestly, I'm going to guess yes. I don't even remember which war that is. But they go wide with what they sing about. So it's pretty great. Scott, if you get a chance, oh, there you go. You have a playlist you've shared. I was gonna say,
yeah, I basically took all the songs that you guys recommended in that chat and made a playlist of them.
Yeah,
so,
there you go. You beat me to the punch, but I'm so excited for you with both Sabaton and Ghost.
Yeah, Ghost. There was, I forget what song it was that got me a little hooked, and Ghost is, I mean, it's a little bit of a slower burn, I think, because there's like there's a lot of really weird songs. Like just the style is kind of not my style. Like it's harder for me to find songs I'm enjoying with Ghost as opposed to like Sabaton, where I generally just enjoy their sound. Ghost is, yeah, I really enjoy Ghost's first album. I've listened to that one twice now, and I really like it.
Yeah, they do go a little all over the place, but within their lane, but they're all over that lane. But like,
yes.
I think what I sent to you was I like their slightly poppier stuff. Because I like all of it, but that's the stuff that starts to hook me, because the rest comes on. I'm like, okay, this is good. I understand why people like it, but if it's not poppy enough, then it might not be on repeat.
I need to take the dive on Ghost because I've got a couple, like Griftwood has been in like my most played for like a solid month now. So like I've fallen hard on a couple songs, but I've yet to actually do any exploring.
So that's why that's on our blend.
Yep, it's probably really near the top too.
The Ghost song that got me hooked was Year Zero.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll share that one in chat too.
My daughter is hitting that age of like snarkiness where I was showing her Griftwood a while back, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I heard about Ghost. They're like Weezer for goths." And I wanted to protest, but also I don't know any better, and it makes sense to me. So
you're grounded, but you're right. Just so you know.
Go to your room and then come back out.
Yeah.
So as for me, I've been playing a fair amount of Hades. I just started a new job this past week, so a lot of brain space in the past little while has gone toward securing and preparing for that. But in my free time, I'd say the only other thing I want to throw a nod out to is the Guardians of the Galaxy video game. Because first of all, I've been playing a lot of Marvel as well. So any card time I've been playing that wasn't Arkham has been like promptly filled by Marvel. Because I'm still trying to get caught up. I'm buying like a new hero every week and playing around with them a little bit just so I can say that I've done it. I've successfully got all the heroes. I just need the Mad Titan's Shadow and then a couple of the standalone villain packs, and then I'll be all caught up for X-Men to drop. Yay. But
nice.
Guardians of the Galaxy, the video game, kind of caught me by surprise. I've heard good things about it. I initially gave it a complete pass because I don't have a whole lot of faith in licensed games just as a rule. And the Avengers game that came out was fairly mediocre. So I'm like, well, I guess they're going to take a swing at Guardians. However, I was very wrong. Guardians feels a lot like, I want to say it's like a more focused, like, you guys remember like the old Ultimate Alliance or X-Men Legends games?
Yeah.
So it feels like that.
Like the Smash ones, right? Like it's the what do you call them? The beat 'em ups?
Yeah. They're kind of beat 'em ups. They're kind of Diablo-esque dungeon crawlers in a way. But this is
Nightcrawlers, if you will.
Yeah, of course. Nightcrawler was the bomb in Legends. He was fantastic. Nightcrawler MVP. But anyway, this is fully realized as like a third person action game. Each character has their own abilities. Generally, you're controlling Star-Lord and commanding your teammates to use their abilities on different enemies and whatnot. The combat's pretty fun. It's not particularly hard, but the combat has been very, very fun, and they have just nailed the dynamic of an ensemble that's like, you have the cutscenes that are well acted and well written, but like just the banter when you're out in a level, like it's never quiet. The characters are always talking to each other, and I never would have thought that it would have mattered so much, but the characters that they're building and the whole story with Guardians is, the team coming together. I'm just having a blast with it. So yeah, I'll report back when I finish it. But so far, really, really digging the Guardians of the Galaxy video game.
I feel like out of any Marvel ensemble, the Guardians of the Galaxy would be the ones where they would just have constant chatter.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's that, yeah.
And they're just bouncing off each other all the time, and like
Mm-hmm.
they did a really good job of like very clearly being inspired by the voices from the movies. In particular, like Rocket and Gamora, they just sound like they're doing impressions of the the movie the MCU actors. But the characters are so much deeper. It goes into lore that's really only from the comics that I didn't know, because I'm one of the people who like vaguely knew about the Guardians of the Galaxy but didn't ever really know anything real about them until the movies started dropping. So it's kind of cool to see a little bit more in-depth background with kind of the quote unquote canon lore from the comics. So yeah, if you enjoy the movies and you like a good third-person action game, I would say it is a no-brainer. It's a very good game, and it'll deliver a Guardians experience in a, I don't know, very unique little package. Yeah, so Guardians. Really digging it.
Nice.
Sweet.
All right, well, I think that's going to wrap us up for episode 137. We'll see you guys for the next one.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.